everyone, I'm Ari here with Rachel and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week we're on episode 329 asking, what's Liz Shipton working on? Before we start, don't forget to visit and follow our coffee page where you can get access to lots of goodies for free. If you're in a position to support us, you can become a Merry Writer for just $2 a month and get access to exclusive content. Everything that's earned on coffee goes back into keeping the show going, and we do appreciate any support. Okay, this week we're getting to know more about Liz Shipton. Liz is a hybrid fantasy author who's known for her viral comedy TikTok videos. Last time Liz was actually on our show, we discussed her book Magic, which has since received a starred review from Publishers Weekly. Now she's back with a standalone called Mother and Slaughter, which is available now. I love that title. I have to say, I absolutely love that title. Liz, thank you so much for being on the podcast again.
Hi, thank you so much for having me again. I'm excited to be here.
It's always fun because obviously you live on a boat, so the idea that do you have to come closer to the dock or something to the edge to get any connection to talk to us?
No, so we actually have Starlink, which is like satellite internet that works everywhere. It's sort of a miracle, actually. It's a very insane thing to be in some of the places that we are, like so remote, and still be able to like stream Netflix. It's sort of weird. It doesn't feel like you should be able to do that, but I kind of have to for my work. I have to be able to get online. So yeah.
I like the fact that you have this, which by the way, it sounds so much like Skynet. I'm a bit like,
Yeah, no. Literally, I actually, in one of my first series, I kind of parodied because it's Musk's like invention, right? So I kind of hate that my work is so dependent on Elon Musk, but like it really is. And yeah, I parodied it in my dystopian series. I think I called it Starnet. It's called Starlink, and in my book it's Starnet. And yeah, it's this like dystopian sort of like Skynet type thing. Because yeah, that is kind of how things are starting to feel a little bit.
yeah, definitely. I just find it funny that like if I go like 10 minutes down my road, I lose signal in
Mm,
my phone to do anything, and you're in the middle of
yeah,
the ocean on a boat and like perfect connection with us, perfect video, perfect audio.
it's crazy. Yeah. The world is just really an absurd place right now.
It really is. Okay, let's get to know you a little bit more. First question. Your latest book, Mother and Slaughter, has just released. Can you tell us about some of the characters and how they came to be?
Yeah, sure. So Mother and Slaughter focuses on the main character's name is Eleanor Skinner. She is a 35-year-old gladiator living in a kingdom called Draconia. She basically, in this kingdom, women are stripped of their magic at birth, and then they're given two choices when they turn 18. You can either become a mother or you can become a gladiator. Eleanor chose gladiator. She's like very happy with her choice. She's a career woman. Once a year, she's forced to basically fight to the death in the arena. And so her job is slaughtering other child-free women for men's entertainment. Basically, the book starts with her getting pregnant. And she and her friend Roz, basically, she doesn't want to be pregnant. She's very much like, I like being a gladiator. I'm into slaughtering other women. I don't want this baby. What are we going to do? And so they go on this quest to basically to find reproductive health care. And Roz is facing her own issues. She is infertile, and so she was like forced into the arena against her will, basically. And along the way, they meet a trans person named Sam, and then they run into this bounty hunter named Ben, who turns out to be Eleanor's baby daddy. And the four of them basically kind of form this found family crew who go on this quest seeking healthcare, and hijinks and hilarity ensue. I don't want to give too much away, but that's sort of the basic premise and the main characters that are in the book.
I have to say, I like how your main character's name, is kind of like a normal name. It's not one of these like,
Yes.
yeah, it's like even the last name, there's not like, Skyfire,
Hmm.
nothing like
Right.
that.
Well, so yeah, it's funny because I sort of have I make a lot of videos about how silly like fantasy and dystopian names are, but I'm also guilty of that exact same thing. Like the main character in my first series was called Bird, and the main character in Magic is Seven. And in this one, yeah, I actually really did want to like it's a pretty straightforward sort of fantasy setting. It's like a medieval Europe, we're trekking through the woods type Knight's Tale kind of situation. So I really wanted to, as much as I could, the premise is pretty outlandish, and a lot of the things that happen in the book are sort of bonkers, but I wanted it grounded in like a very real sort of feeling. So I looked up like, well, what would these people's last names actually be? And so, you know, Eleanor Skinner, obviously her dad's going to be some sort of like hunter or skinner or trapper, right? Because people's names were related to their profession at that time. And so her best friend's name is Roz or Rosalind Butcher. The person that they meet, the trans person that they meet, is Samuel Thatcher. And then Ben's full name is Benedict Cockburn, purely because I think that was funny. And I love, there was a joke that I actually didn't get to put in the book that I really wanted to put in that was like, well, everybody's name is basically, your last name is based on what your father did for a living. So, like, what was your father doing for a living, Benedict Cockburn? I didn't end up putting that in there, but that's a little, I don't know, behind the scenes info for you, I guess.
That's nice though to let the readers infer their own conclusions about that though.
Sure. Yeah,
Some
right.
things should be left, open-ended in that sense.
Yeah.
No, I do. I like that, and it's interesting as well because obviously, like, it's slow. It's Skinner. It's Butcher. It's not Baker.
Mm-hmm.
It already has
Right.
this
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
like I'm used to. There's obviously family thing where there's like blood and things. And honestly, if it's fighting once a year, was it once a year? It's like
Mm-hmm.
that honestly does sound better than raising
So
kids. If I'm honest.
that's literally in the first chapter. Eleanor and Rosalind are like having dinner and they're talking. And I forget exactly what Roz says, but she says like, "Oh, at the small cost of a harrowing seasonal bloodbath." And Eleanor's like, "Nah, it's one day out of your year. Like, whatever, we're fine." So yeah, that is sort of the. I wanted it to be like, I don't know. The premise obviously is like pretty outlandish, and it's all sort of very satirical and not really meant to be taken totally seriously. But I did want it to be like, well, yeah, you could kind of almost like weigh the cost of that, and it actually does kind of make sense. Like maybe I would choose that. I don't know.
Like Christmas once a year, just
Uh-huh.
bloodier and
Yeah.
less fairy lights probably.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like a slight risk of death. No
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
biggie. No
But
biggie.
yeah, it's one day out of your year.
Yeah, it sounds fine. I mean, if you have kids, you got to deal with that 24/7, 365 days a year. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
makes sense to me.
Exactly.
I actually really appreciate how you were able to touch upon so many true to life things in this fantasy dystopian setting, but still bring so much creativity to it and have that satire element to it as well, so that it's I don't know if lighthearted would be the right word, but it's like a little
Certainly
more
not.
like it's not lighthearted, but it's like you put like this that's not even a positive spin. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do.
But
Yeah.
considering
Yeah.
everything else going on in the world, it's like you have that found family theme going on or trope going on. So it's like it's a little hopefully you know what I'm saying.
I do sort of. Yeah. I mean, the humor is pretty dark, I guess I would say, which is that's kind of like that's my jam, I guess, is like dark humor. And some of it I think I'm like, I don't actually know if anybody is gonna actually think this is funny except for me. But that's sort of how it's like if I think it's funny, it's going in. Like I'll do it. And you kind of have to you have to have some kind of litmus test for right for like what you're gonna allow in and out. And my litmus test is does it make me laugh? And if it does, then it goes in. But yeah, I do appreciate like a lot of the humor is very dark. But then yeah, like you're saying, on the other hand, I think that does get balanced by Eleanor and Roz's relationship, which is very like they fight a lot and they argue a lot and they don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. But like at the end of the day, they are there for each other and their relationship is very familiar. They know each other really well. That's kind of why they argue so much, is because they know each other so well. And they know exactly how to like push each other's buttons and how to call each other out on their shit. And then the other characters that they meet, on this quest, yeah, it feels, I don't want to say cozy, but like weirdly kind of cozy in this like incredibly dystopian, dark world. You've got these like four characters yeah, banding together in a kind of a really nice way. I think I don't know, that always sort of ends up happening in my books. There's a lot of like found family in my books just because I think having a really interesting complete cast of characters is more interesting than not having that. Wow, that was so wise, right?
Well, it sounded more wise than what I was trying to explain, so it works. I mean, so with that said, I do appreciate that you have like a strong core group of characters, it sounds like. And we sort of kind of already touched upon this, but what themes are explored in Mother and Slaughter?
Well, I'd say like the most obvious sort of theme is like power and oppression, and especially how oppression sort of intersects at various junctures. So, Eleanor is a woman in this incredibly draconian kingdom. She is oppressed in that way. Roz is a black woman, and so the book definitely touches, or doesn't even really touch on, but it kind of like really digs into the ways in which Roz is oppressed and the ways that Eleanor doesn't even really understand that and is quite ignorant to that. Sam is trans, obviously, and so, we talk a lot about how Eleanor and Roz, or Ellie and Roz, are both sort of prejudiced against Sam, and how Sam has to stand up for herself. And then even how Ben, who like he's introduced as this very sort of like stereotypical tough guy, romance, very handsome, super good at his job, guy, but then throughout the book, what sort of unravels is also how oppressed he is by this system, and how he also struggles, not just because he's a man, like it's not actually like the system is really benefiting him, the system obviously being like patriarchy. So that's kind of like, I guess, sort of the main theme of the book. And then there's also an immigrant character who we don't really meet until kind of the end of the book, which is sort of intentional. And we find out how all of these themes, like all of this oppression, is sort of all tied up together. And how the, like, how to explain this? I mean, I wrote this after the election, so there's a lot of like, obviously like what is happening in the United States right now informed the book. And like sort of how leading up to the election, I, as a woman, sort of felt like abortion and um, trans rights and gender issues and that kind of thing were sort of the driving thing that was like going to make or break the election. And then after kind of what that kind of all went away a little bit. Like it doesn't really get as deeply talked about anymore. And what really is going on now is the immigration thing, and how ICE is just, hauling people out of their houses and shooting people in their cars and all this crazy stuff. And how the campaign leading up to the election, I think, really used those issues of like abortion and trans rights to turn the left, I guess you could say, against each other and divide the country. And then once they had done that and won, then they kind of like unveiled their real agenda, which was like, no, we're gonna be harming like everybody. So I think the book kind of digs into that a little bit, how these issues were sort of weaponized, I guess, and used to get the people who are currently in power into power. And I don't really have a good like the book doesn't really offer any solutions as to like what we can do, but the idea of kind of coming together as a found family and getting over our differences and becoming a bit more of a not homogenized but like cooperative group is really the only way that you're going to be able to like overthrow those kinds of systems. Did any of that make any sense?
Yes, it did. And that's exactly what I was trying to say earlier when I mentioned that it sounds lighthearted, quote unquote. I meant that I really give you a lot of credit for discussing these tough issues in your book and having
Mm.
that supportive twist to it. And it kind of shows a little bit of hope. Obviously, I have not read the book yet, but it shows that hope that even though all of these things are happening to us in real life and to all of these different people in the United States, it really does. It showcases those issues and shows that, as you said, even though there's really no solution in the book or anything like that, it just kind of goes to show that we do need to be kind to one another and we do need to stick together and support one another. So that's what I was trying to say earlier. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
I give
that's
you so much credit for taking such a serious, sensitive topic and writing a book about it.
yeah, and a comedy book. I mean, yeah. it is a tough sell, honestly, like a comedy book about abortion, trans rights, and immigration. Like what? But I kind of, thinking about it, it's like, well, I don't think that anybody would want to read a book about those things that like wasn't a comedy book because that just sounds like just real life and nobody wants to hear about that. So yeah, it was kind of a weird challenge to, I don't really know why I did it, but like a weird challenge to be like, can I take these incredibly serious, sensitive, difficult topics and discuss them in a way that's I don't want to say fun, but like, tolerable to talk about them. And I don't know. I think I did a decent job, and I guess we'll find out as people start reading the book.
No, it's as you said earlier that it's like balanced. You have to find that balance. You got to talk about these issues without sounding insensitive, but sound
Yeah.
sensitive enough. And
hmm
yeah.
Yeah, and then at the same time, you don't want to go too far in. See, like I think that's why the humor is kind of a nice, especially like my kind of humor, which is like pretty sort of sarcastic and a bit dark. You also don't want to go too far into like kind of saccharine, like pathos and oh, poor us, and like I don't know. I think that the humor sort of gives it a bit of that like sarcastic edge that makes it, yeah, just a little bit more fun, especially for me to read about.
Well, I think it's like with humor, especially with the topics you're talking about, it's that sense of like, if I don't laugh, I'm going to cry
Right.
or
Yes,
burn
exactly.
something, which is always a good thing
Right.
to go with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There were two thoughts I had. Give me a minute. I am trying to remember them. They've drifted a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the fact that you are touching on these. I don't like using the term, but like the controversial, because someone's like, "Oh, you can't talk about abortion. You can't
hmm
talk about
hmm
oppression." It's like, fuck off.
hmm
Sometimes you need to talk about it, and if you can do it with humor, that's even better. Especially when you mentioned about how like you've got this group and they come together because
hmm
especially in the and obviously I am British. I know of things that are happening in America because I see the news, but obviously I am
mm,
not living it to that level. We have our own crazy over here, our own
right.
mental that's going on. And one of the things that is very similar for over here and over there is this idea of like pitching each other against, you'll
Y
get it's like,
yep.
oh, the immigrants taking your this, and it's like it's almost like poor people against poor people, so you don't know what the rich people are doing at the top,
Right.
and what you
Yeah.
need to do is everyone needs to come together and be like, these are not my enemies.
Right.
These are like me. Those people up there hoarding the wealth, ruining everybody's rights, having decisions about that sort of thing. They're the ones we need to be looking at.
Yes. Yeah.
I also like that you said with your characters, the main characters, that they didn't even they weren't fully understanding of each other's, what was the word, like not prejudice but like discriminations and difficulties that person had.
hmm
That's unusual because usually what happens is when you have like your main characters, it's like a lot of times people write things and everyone gets on, they understand and they're there already. But with
Yeah.
yours, it sounds like instead they had to learn what it was like. That
Yeah.
Roz will have different oh my God, my words are not coming. Roz will have different reactions to things that Eleanor will have, that Sam will have, and different ways of being affected by that. And instead of it being like, oh, yes, we're all oppressed in our own way, we understand it. It's like, actually, no, you don't, because that is very
Yeah.
realistic that we don't understand it from other people and we have to learn it and be around each other and that. So I think that's really unusual. You don't often get that. At least I've not seen that very often in books.
Oh, that's nice, actually. Yeah. So I'm really glad you mentioned that because, yes, that is, you kind of just summarized it in a way that I was sort of trying really hard to get to, but failing. That's exactly it. So that is sort of like, so we start out with Eleanor and Roz, literally like these women fight each other to the death for men's entertainment, right? And so that's sort of like women are literally pit against each other. And then you also have then sort of the broader, like two groups of gladiators and mothers, and they don't really get along. They don't really understand each other. That's kind of a big theme in the book is that Eleanor has spent her entire life in the arena learning how to fight, and her whole focus is on that. So like when they talk about like motherhood, she doesn't know anything about it. She doesn't hang out with mothers. She doesn't know any. She doesn't talk to them. She also doesn't really hang out with any men. So then you have sort of the larger picture of like women versus men and how silly that all is. And then, yeah, when they meet Sam, Roz has a really difficult time getting along with Sam, and that doesn't really get resolved. That actually doesn't even really get resolved in the book. They end in a place where they're still sort of figuring each other out. And Roz is basically saying, I'm going to try and do the work to understand this person. And Sam has very graciously allowed me to do that and evaluate how I'm doing. So yeah, all the characters are pretty morally gray. First of all of them, there's a lot of arguing in the book. All of them struggle to understand each other. And by the end, all of them have sort of come together and not resolve their differences, but recognize that they have those differences and are working towards understanding them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Hey, I love hearing that. But no, exactly. And it's just like, it shows that even if you haven't fully, if you're still grappling with certain issues, or you're still dealing with it, you're still understanding the common goal is everyone together, not this issue or that issue. It's like, so I like the idea that there is still this work to be done, and that has that nice thing where, especially on a standalone book, where there's like the reader can think, oh, I wonder how that ends further on down the line, and they can do that. But no, that's it sounds like you've woven these themes really nicely in with a nice big slapdash of sarcasms, which is always good.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. The early editorial reviews are good. So I was very, very nervous about this book, honestly, because there's a lot in it, and it's quite blunt, and it's the language, there's a lot of bad language, there's quite a fair bit of gore, and I just was like, either this is great or it's terrible, and I don't know, and I'm just gonna put it out and see what happens. And so far, like Kirkus and Book Life and a couple other places have come back and said that it's good, so hooray! Like, thank God.
That's always a huge relief and a big weight off your shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a quick follow-up question, because when we first started talking about the book, I had it in my head that it sounds like this book is more plot driven, but then we've been talking about the characters an awful lot. So now I'm wondering, is this more plot driven or more character driven?
What's funny is, like, people always ask me that, and I don't really know what the difference. Like I don't think of my books as being either or. I guess, like, they're always going to be character driven, because I just think that really layered, complex characters are more interesting and true to life than not doing that. And then I love a plot twist. So there's a big plot twist in this one. Or yeah, there's really only one. In Docile Magic, there was like just so many plot twists at the end. This one, there's really sort of one significant plot twist that kind of is the conceit of the whole book. And I guess I would say it's more character driven, because apart from that, most of the plot is them on this quest. And most of what happens on the quest is done in order to advance the characters' understanding of each other and growth and further their arcs. So yeah, I guess I could say that it is more character driven, but the plot is also good. you know? Yeah, and I think also, like, I don't know, I usually find that I plot books very tightly, and that's kind of where I am driven from in the writing process. And I usually start with the characters being a fairly almost like surface level read of the characters. I don't really know who the characters are, until they start really getting into all these like plot situations that I've devised for them. And then they grow out of the plot. And then the plot also sometimes gets influenced by them. So like things will change, or like stuff won't make sense, or I'll have to go back and like change things earlier in the book. But I think that's fine. I think that's kind of how life is, right? Like, people aren't born with their characters fully formed. You are shaped by the things that happen to you in your life. And then the things that happen to you in your life are also shaped by the decisions that you make. So it's all kind of tangled together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if I'm using this phrase correctly. It's like two sides of the same coin, basically.
Yes.
Like, you can't have one without the other. But
Right.
as we were talking about the book, I was like, oh, I feel like this is more character driven, which I personally prefer, because I feel like without characters, you wouldn't have a plot.
Right.
Like you can
Exactly.
have a
Yeah.
plot, but you need characters to act upon the plot. So it, but so yeah, okay, thank you for answering that. I like that.
Hopefully that was clear.
Yeah, it sounds like it's probably a nice 50-50 because obviously if it's plot driven, it's usually got these like almost 2D characters where you barely remember who they are, but they're racing through the action. And then
Hmm.
otherwise it's like character driven. The ones I see that are mainly character driven with like almost no plot, they're the ones where they spend a lot of time like going to dinner at each other's houses, which is good. It gets it,
Mm,
but it's like there's nothing else happening. So
right. Yeah. Or something like, I mean, if I think of like character driven, I think of like something like Cormac McCarthy, where literally like almost nothing happens in the entire book. And then you get to the end and you're like, wow, that was amazing. But like, what actually happened? They just rode horses for a really long time.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of long time, how long
Mm.
have you been working on Mother and Slaughter?
I think total it was about 4 to 6 months. So I started it right after the election in 2024. So it was probably around like November 2024, or maybe even the beginning of 2025. And then what year is it now? 2026. Yeah. So I finished it somewhere in the summer of 2025. And so it was probably around 6 months. But I had kind of had this idea sort of knocking around in my head for a while. Not exactly the same idea, but the idea of a woman who, I think the original idea was like I was going to have a woman who was living in the United States in the current time, or maybe some sort of dystopian version of the current time, which I don't even know what that would be. It's just this is pretty dystopian already. And she gets pregnant and is forced to carry the pregnancy to term and is so pissed about that that she goes on a mission to assassinate a Supreme Court justice. That was like the original idea. And then I kind of just thought like, oh, that's sort of a bit too grim and real. So why don't we put it in a fantasy world and put some magic in there and monsters and stuff like that. So yeah,
You may have ended up on a watch list if you hadn't have done it.
sure. Yeah, totally.
Wait, so if you started this like you mean the first draft took you 6 months or
Yeah. I mean, or I mean,
okay.
yes. So let's see. I'm just trying to remember because my agent and I actually pitched it last summer to some publishing houses, and the publishing houses basically came back and said like, "This is great. It's not for us. Like, we don't know what to do with this." And so then I decided to self-publish it because I'd already, self-published a few things before. So yeah, I would say like the first draft was sort of like beginning of 2025, and then I was cleaning it up and editing it through the end of 2025, and then I ran a Kickstarter for it this March, and that just wrapped, and then it's going to launch in July.
Wow. So that's fast.
I write
Making
pretty
me
fast.
feel really
Well,
inadequate
but no,
here.
no, 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 because here's the thing. Like I live on a boat. I live on a boat in the Caribbean. This is like all I do. I also like, I have a sort of a tendency to get very obsessive with my writing and for that to be sort of the only thing I'm doing. So, yeah, I mean, I have the luxury of being able to write fast. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't have anything else drawing my timer.
Which is great, and I'm extremely jealous about that. I might have to invest in a boat, which I'm pretty sure I said last time you were on the podcast.
Yeah, do it. I mean, for
Oh,
me, that was a big part of why I pursued this lifestyle, honestly, right? Because I knew that it would give me the freedom to pursue this career, and that was something I wanted to do. And so I kind of have deliberately set up my life in such a way that I can do this.
That's really clever. I mean, obviously, there is a sense of like, yep, let's get a boat. It's the only way to do it. But what you just said was perfect. It's like you set up your life so you can do it. It's like that. It's whether living in a house or living on a barge or living on a train or a sailboat. It's like, yeah, as long as you can make it work. So I think it's reducing obstacles, isn't it? And making it so it's seamless to sit down and write.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously you don't have to do it this way. I probably just did because I'm a little bit mentally unbalanced. I don't know. But yeah, like as the more you prioritize it, the more time you'll be able to devote to it. And for me, this was like this is the thing I want to do with my life. And so that kind of came first, and everything else is sort of in support of that in a way, which may or may not be a fully healthy way to live. I'll let you know when I'm like 80, looking back on my life, whether it was the right thing to do or not. But yeah.
as long as you enjoyed the journey, right? That's the whole
Yeah.
purpose. Enjoy the journey, forget the destination. You mentioned earlier about you running a Kickstarter for this book, so now we want to pick your brain a little bit because you've run a few Kickstarters, if I am correct. Can you tell us a little bit about that process, like the good, the bad, and the ugly of running all of these Kickstarters?
Sure, yeah. So this is my second Kickstarter. I ran one last year for a book of short stories. They were like spicy, short, kind of silly. I call them like grown-up fairy tales. And that went really well. And then I ran my second one for Mother and Slaughter this year, in the spring. And I plan to do, I think, either in this fall or next spring. Basically, I'm going to do at least one every year because, yeah, it is an incredible way to operate as an indie author. Basically, well, so first of all, I should say that all the information I know, everything I know about Kickstarter, I learned from a group on Facebook called Kickstarter for Authors. It's run by a woman named Anthea Sharp, and it's just like a treasure trove of information about running Kickstarters. And if you go in that group and sort of look at the way authors in there set up their campaigns and the way they fulfill them, and I mean, there's people in that group who have been doing this for like many, many years, and they know exactly what to do. So I would first of all recommend to check out the Kickstarter for Authors group because it's just an incredible resource. And yeah, you have to plan it quite a lot, and it takes up a lot of your time if you're running a Kickstarter. Like that's sort of what you're doing as far as like your writing career goes. I put up a pre-launch page like a month before launch, and I basically promote that pre-launch page so that by the time you launch, you have some number of people following your campaign. About half of those people will convert into backers who will actually back at whatever tier your campaign. And then, yeah, you set up basically tiers of rewards from like a very low cost all the way up to a pretty high cost tier. And backers essentially back that tier. And what they'll be getting when they back that tier is either like the ebook or the paperback or the hardcover or a book box with the hardcover and a t-shirt and I can't remember exactly what I put in mine, or like art prints are really popular. I do a bookmark and a sticker. And so basically what they are doing is they're pledging to say, I would like to purchase this thing. And then you use that money to fund the creation of the things that they have purchased, and then you send them out. So you have to handle shipping, you have to handle like taxes and know like sort of the customs laws. If you're going to ship internationally, you have to know a lot about like the international shipping regulations, which is a huge pain in the ass. To be perfectly honest, now that I've done two of them by myself, I don't really ever want to do it myself again. I'm going to look into partnering with a fulfillment company for my next campaign. There's a lot of companies out there. Merrick Books is one of them that will literally work with you to, I mean, they'll run the whole campaign for you, I think, if you want them to do that, or they can just manage like the shipping portion for you, or they can manage like storage of your items that you're going to ship yourself or whatever. So it is a huge undertaking and like a huge ordeal. But so this Kickstarter this year funded at around $22,000. Of that, I will walk away with at least half, potentially a little more for this one, because I did a print run of the hardcover, which meant that I'm getting each hardcover at like a very low cost. And last year, my Kickstarter funded at, I think it was like $34,000. And I walked away with about half of that after I'd paid for like the printing of the books, the printing of the art prints, the printing of bookmarks and t-shirts and all that kind of stuff, and shipping them all out to backers. Then I profit, however much that was, which is pretty great. So you're not only funding the production of your book, you're also like making a profit, and you're also building a bit of an audience. So Kickstarter has its own algorithms, just like Amazon, just like TikTok, just like Facebook, whatever, where if there's a project that is doing well or that seems to have a lot of interest, they will kind of surface it through their pages, their various search functions or whatever, so that people who are just on Kickstarter are more likely to see that project, and you can actually pick up new readers from the Kickstarter platform itself. So I now have readers who found me through Kickstarter, and like the way that they know me is that they backed one of my projects and now they're on my newsletter and they're, following me on TikTok and they're maybe going to buy my next book. And so it's a really great way not only to fund your book, but also to actually like build a bit more of an audience. Highly, highly recommend Kickstarter.
Wow. Kickstarter has always intimidated me so much, just, because I look at people's pages and they're gorgeous, and the amount of work that must go into it is crazy to me. And I've been on Kickstarter many times. I've backed many projects before, but I've never really thought about doing it myself because it's intimidating, and I know how much work and effort that goes into it. And you just told me some things that I didn't even know. Like I didn't know you can go through a fulfillment company and things like that. And wow, that's
Yeah. Also, I should also say that like it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It is for me. It is for me because I want to do like hardcovers and art prints, and I have a fairly sizable audience already. So the campaigns, like I was coming in with a bit of an audience from like social media and people who kind of already knew my work. But there's a lot of people on Kickstarter running campaigns that fund to like a few $1,000s, and they're just releasing like a paperback, or they're just releasing like a paperback and some art prints or whatever it may be. So it doesn't actually have to be this like massive ordeal. There are smaller campaigns and lots of authors running smaller campaigns. But again, you can find all of that through the Kickstarter for Authors Facebook group. That's like a really good place to just start poking around, seeing what's there, seeing who's doing what, and asking questions because they're all very, very helpful over there.
well, that's a good point, because every time I go onto Kickstarter, I always see these gorgeous pages and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so much work. But it makes sense that, yeah, you can start small, especially if you don't have a large audience right now, which is me.
Hmm.
But yeah, I will definitely be looking into this Facebook page because you just gave so much good information. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, I can I'll send you a link, and I don't know if you can put it in the show notes or something like that, but yeah, I
Oh
can send you a
yeah.
link to that group.
Yeah, we can do that. Wow. You're always giving me so much to think about after we talk to you.
We just have a quick question with the Kickstarter thing. When
Mm.
you were designing it and you were like, right, these are my tiers, these are what I want. I want to have hardbacks, I want to have stickers, I want to have this. Did you like go and price that up? Did you make sure you had vendors and suppliers who could create that stuff for you ready in your back pocket before even, obviously, because Kickstarter isn't a guarantee. It always says not a guarantee,
Hmm.
just so you had that ready before you put it out there. Because I've seen there's been some great things on Kickstarter, and then there's been obviously the dodgy ones where it's like, oh, this person got
Mm.
98,000 and then vanished, and you're thinking, wow,
Mm.
seriously? So I assume it's
Yeah.
like you made sure you had all these things behind, because it's like that sounds stressful enough. If you got through your Kickstarter, got the money, and then it's like, okay, now I've got to find vendors who can print bookmarks.
Yeah. Yeah. So, some of the stuff I did and some of the stuff I actually did not. So it was a bit easier this time because having done the first one, very, very stressful. I had no idea if it was going to work. I had no idea if it was going to fund. The fact that it funded at $34,000 was like a shocking revelation to me. I was blown away. I was not expecting that at all. This time it was a bit easier because I kind of knew, all right, I know that if this number of people are following my pre-launch campaign, I can pretty much count on at least half of them backing me. And then you can sort of from there figure out how much you might make based on like how many people are going to back and that kind of a thing. And so from there you can then it is a lot of work and a lot of like spreadsheets and a lot of stuff that honestly I'm not very good at, and it's really, really difficult for me to force myself to like sit down and do. But yeah, you kind of go through, you price it all out ahead of time. You price your tiers based on like, okay, here's how much I'll have to spend to produce each item in this tier. So therefore, I'm going to price the tier at like twice what it'll cost me to produce so that I know I'm going to make, X amount of profit on it. And then, of course, there's like the upfront costs of like, so if you have an editor for your book, for example, or like for me, I have this incredible artist, Daniel Lorca, who illustrated Mother and Slaughter, who is just phenomenal. Like his art is insane. And I know that I'm going to have to pay him X number of dollars per art piece that he's going to do for me. So when you set your like funding goal, Every campaign has a like, we're trying to get $5,000 or we're trying to get $1,000 or however much it is. You set your funding goal to know that you're at least going to cover all your costs if you fund, but you set it low enough so that you can meet that goal quite easily. And then from there, it's kind of people see that you've met your goal and they're more likely to back your project. There's like a social proof thing that happens where like once you've funded and you can say, oh my God, we're 100% funded, and you post on social media or whatever it is, and you get people excited like, oh, people are interested in this. Oh, other people have backed this. Okay, now I'm going to be more likely to like put my money up and back it. So it's kind of like you have to sort of like game it a little bit. You want your funding goal high enough that you're going to cover your at least your basic expenses, but you want it low enough that you can meet it fairly easily so that more people are interested in it.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
much information. It does sound like you've got a lot of pieces moving.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a so yeah, again, the Facebook group is great. There's a book by Anthea Sharp, an ebook. It's like $5. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's something like running Kickstarter for authors or Kickstarter for authors or something. I can send you guys a link to this as well. That has literally sort of a step-by-step guide of how to set up your campaign, how to run it, how to price it, like all that kind of stuff. And it's everything I know I learned from that, basically.
Just one more thing for me to add to my list.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot. It is a lot.
Oh my gosh.
Does sound like a good one though. As you said, it's like even if you've got a small set of readers and everything, and you're doing something simple, it's like dipping your toes in, and let's try it. We should try it sometime.
Right.
Congratulations
exactly.
on the 2
Thank
successful
you.
campaigns, by the way.
Seriously, yeah,
Thank you.
that's incredible. I've already forgot where we are. Give me a minute. Okay, next question. You've written dystopians, you've written some sci-fi, we've got political satire, and we see you also have a pen name where you write romance novel.
Oh, yes.
We stumbled upon that. We're like, wait, is that another set of books? It's like, seriously, you're just out there crushing it on a boat. I mean, the fact you ran a Kickstarter while on a boat, were you next to a post office or anything?
Oh, yeah. I don't recommend that, by the way. I highly do not recommend running a Kickstarter from a boat in the Caribbean. It's like last year. Oh my God. So last year, when it came time to actually fulfill the Kickstarter, we had to sail from one island in the Caribbean to a different island in order to use the post office. Like I had to go to a different country. I had to sail my boat to Puerto Rico in order to use like the US Postal Service, because where we were, there was no post office. So yeah, don't do that. Do Kickstarter, but don't do it from a boat in the Caribbean. Not recommended at all.
You just needed that extra difficulty level.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong.
Seems to be, yeah. Which honestly works perfectly for the question. So you've got 2 pen names, different genres. How are you juggling 2 author sides of yourself?
Great question. I actually only just started the second pen name, so again, while I was fulfilling the Kickstarter. So this is probably going to sound kind of insane and maybe come as a surprise, but my books that I release under my real name don't actually make me that much money because they are sort of weird cross-genre, like, you know, a fantasy comedy about abortion. Like that's a hard sell. It's not like a best-selling strategy at all. Neither was Dot Slash Magic, to be honest, like a sci fantasy about artificial intelligence. Like it's difficult for people to sort of like immediately grab onto and go, oh, I know what that is. And if your books are not that, they are very hard to sell. So I got tired of making very little money at this for like the amount that I was working. And I thought, okay, what can I do that will sell? And I saw that Heated Rivalry was extremely popular. Like at the end of last year, they had the Netflix show or whatever service it was on. And I saw that it was based on a book. I was like, oh. So I read the book. I actually didn't watch the show, but I read the book. I was like, okay, it's a very, very, very spicy male-male hockey romance. And that is a genre and a niche that has like a built-in audience. It's pretty straightforward. I know that there's like demand for it. So I thought, all right, I'm going to try and just write a book in this genre. I'd written some male-male romance stuff before because my dystopian series actually, I mean, so far all of my books have had some romance in them. I don't think you could classify them as like romances because they don't really quite meet the criteria for that. But I'd done some male action in the Thalassic series, in the dystopian series, and I liked writing that. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. I wrote the book very quickly, and I kind of just like threw it up in KU and made a few TikToks for it to see like if it would gain any traction, and it did immediately, like way more than I had really been anticipating. And so then it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm going to keep doing this now as well. So that the pen name is a new thing. It's the pen name is Haley Reeves, if anyone's interested in checking it out. Book 1 in the series is called Meddling. It's a male, very, very steamy male hockey romance book. And then I have 2 more books planned in that series. That pen name, yes, now I've sort of committed to writing a series under that pen name. And I'm basically moving in a direction now of I'm gonna write more straightforward romance stuff under that pen name. And then I'm gonna take my real name, all the speculative fiction stuff that I like, I'm just gonna move more towards that and kind of take out the romance a little bit. Like there's probably always gonna be some romance in there. But what I really love about that stuff, about like Dot/Magic and Mother and Slaughter, is the world building and the magic systems and the sort of political commentary and the social issues and all that kind of stuff. So at the moment, I'm moving in a direction of sort of separating the romance out from the speculative fiction, doing the romance under the pen name and the more speculative fiction stuff under my real name. We'll see how it goes.
I think that's really clever though, because you often get people who say like, "Oh, if you want the money, you have to chase the trends, and not do anything that's like unusual or something where your readership probably
Right.
isn't going to be as broad." But that always sounds really sad, as in like it's like, oh, but if you really like something different, I mean, and it's like you said, like you've got your books, you know, they're not like, oh wow, everyone's going to love them. There'll be people who are like, you're laughing at,
Yeah.
you're making fun of abortion. It's like how strange. But there are people out there. Every book has an audience, and you want to have that. And as I said, like you love your stories, you love the comedy songs, you makes you laugh, and it's like there's going to be other people who have your sense of humor, and they want to read those. So I think it's really clever that you're not just pigeonholing yourself into I'm just going to do this stuff, even if it doesn't pay much, or I'm just going to do this stuff. It's trendy. I'll get a lot more by splitting it out, even though it's obviously you've doubled your workload. Let's be honest.
Yes.
It does sound like a better way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think this is what a lot of writers do, and it took me sort of like 4.5 years to figure out that this was the way to go. Basically, I spent the last 4.5 years fighting the market and basically being like, no, I'm going to write the weird stuff, and it is going to break through, and people are going to love it, and it is going to be best-selling. And like, no, you're not. You're one small person. Nobody knows who you are. So, yeah, I basically got to a point where I was like, okay, the stuff that's under my real name probably has like maybe a bit of a cult following, but it's never gonna make me money to live on. So I need something else that's basically gonna support that.
It does. I've always been the type of person that dislikes writing to market, mostly because I'm stubborn. I mean, I know it works, and we all know it works well, but I like the way that you're doing it because you're still able to write what you enjoy to write while also writing to market. And I'm not saying you don't enjoy writing the male romance, obviously. Like you enjoy that as well, but you can have both sides of each, you know. Now, what's that saying? Have your cake and eat it too?
Yeah.
Right?
I love cake.
Yeah.
So I'm into that. Yeah, and it was actually really eye-opening for me to see just how well writing to market works, because after 4 years of sort of struggling to get pre-orders and get my books seen and like make money, literally the first book I wrote that was like, okay, it's got these tropes and it's in this genre and I'm targeting this particular audience and I'm doing it exactly like as they say, I'm writing to market, and it worked. Like, I mean, it was really sort of surprising to me how well that worked. So, and you're right, I did enjoy it. Ultimately, I really liked the book that I put out. Like it's kind of light and silly and fun, and it's not meant to be a fully serious, like book, but I was very proud of it. And I was like, this is good. I'm happy to have this out there. I'm happy for people to know that I wrote it. So yeah, I mean, you kind of can do both, I think. You just have to, I don't know, live on a boat in the Caribbean and that's all you do with your time.
I was just gonna say you have to be very disciplined, and living on a boat helps, apparently.
Yeah, for me it does
But
anyway.
I will say when I was trying to think of different questions for this interview than last time you were on the show. So I was on your website and I saw the Haley Reeves tab
Mm,
and I clicked on it and I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And then your other books popped up and I was like, "Wait a second." I was like, "This wasn't here a year ago." I
it
was like, "Wait a
wasn't.
second. Am I on the right website?" And I'm emailing Ari and I'm like, "Did you know that Liz has a pen name?"
Yeah, this literally
It really
started,
threw us for a loop.
I think this literally started like a month ago. That's genuinely like I'm pretty sure I put that page up on my website less than a month ago. So yeah, that's how long this has been a thing.
So I saw it just in time then.
Yeah, yeah.
Alrighty, well, we'll wrap it up with one final tidbit of Mother and Slaughter, which is available now. Please share the blurb and the genre and all that fun stuff with everybody.
Sure. So, Mother and Slaughter, blurb. 150 years ago, women were stripped of their magic. Ever since then, every woman who comes of age in the kingdom is given a choice. You're either a gladiator or you're a mother. Eleanor Skinner is the main character. She chose gladiator. She's now at 35, the oldest undefeated gladiator in the history of Draconia. She loves being a gladiator. She's a career woman. And then she gets knocked up and has to figure out a way to basically end the pregnancy so that she can keep being a gladiator. Hijinks and hilarity and gore and all kinds of stuff ensue. I'd say the genre I've been calling it is what am I saying? Oh, female rage fueled fantasy satire. It's The Handmaid's Tale meets Kill Bill, basically. And yeah, you can get it through Amazon. You can get it if you're a bookshop or a distributor. You can get it through Ingram Spark. If you want to order it at your local bookshop, they can order it in for you. You can order it at your local library. It's available in all the places.
I love that genre. I think you may have just created a whole new genre that people can write under. That's just perfect.
Yeah, especially like with the world in its current state, like maybe we need more of those books. So yeah, if anyone wants to write another female rage-fueled fantasy satire, please go for it.
I'll also say, whenever you say hijinks, it's like, yeah, that's definitely a word I would put with your books.
Yes.
Hijinks is perfect for
all,
that.
It's all
just
hijinks.
Oh, okay. This has been so fun. This has been so much fun. Liz, it has been an absolute pleasure for you to come back on. Now, we may have asked you this extra question last time, but you might have changed your mind. So we're going to ask it again. Tea or coffee?
Ooh, coffee. Yeah, always. Every morning.
Thank you.
I can't function without it. For better or worse. That's not necessarily a good thing, but yeah.
Fine.
Sorry.
Rachel gets another point.
That's you gave me 2 coffee points. I just looked it up. You said coffee last time too, so hooray.
You should try tea. Tea is lovely, right? It's real. You should go for tea. It's very healthy.
I'm actually also British. I lived in California for a long time, but yeah, I lived in England until I was 9, and I used to drink tea as a kid, and my whole family drinks tea. My dad, it's like he lives on tea. And I don't know what happened, but at some point I just stopped drinking it and I never really got back into it. But I do appreciate the good English cup of tea. I think you're totally right that it is a good thing.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And people just don't appreciate it enough.
It's true.
Liz, you don't have to butter Ari up. You've been on the podcast twice.
Don't
worry about it.
for you until you start drinking tea, and then you're allowed to come back on. That's the deal. Tea drinking or nothing.
I'll get on that for next year.
Before we go, please let our listeners know about you, the person, you, the author, and any websites and everything you want to share.
Sure. My name is Liz Shipton. I'm a hybrid speculative fiction author. I have a pen name, Haley Reeves, under which I write male spicy romance. You can find everything about me at lizshipton.com or at the handle at Liz Shipton Author on any of the social media platforms.
I always think it's good if someone actually has their name perfectly on every single one. Mine's different on everyone, which is bad, but it's what happens. Thank you for joining us again on the podcast. It has been great. We will make sure that Liz's links are all listed in the description below, and obviously go and have a look at them and then come back and give a shout out in the comments. Remember, we do release new episodes every Wednesday. Next week, we're discussing finding your genre. To ensure you don't miss it, hit the subscribe button on your way out. If you'd like to learn more about us, you can check out our website on themerrywriterpodcast.podbean.com, or you can also visit our coffee page for more content. Thanks for listening to the Merry Writer Podcast. We'll see you next week. This podcast is brought to you by Too Many Ideas. We keep writing sequels. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.